Welcome back. This is Aretha in New York City. I hope you can hear me. You're seeing the Sankofa bird, and Sankofa, the word comes to us from West Africa, Ghana, and it means go back and take that which is at risk of being left behind. What is at risk of being left behind? Our history. So today I'm going to talk about Samuel Sharpe, and the theme for the day is Christianity makes one unfit to be enslaved. The exact date of Samuel Archer Sharpe's birth is unknown, but it is believed he was born in 1801. He was born in Jamaica, West Indies. The first documentation made about him was made on June 28, 1817, where he was listed as the human property of a lawyer with the same name. We also have a description of Sam Sharpe, provided to us by Reverend Henry Bleeby, a white Baptist minister who described Sharpe as being middle-sized, fine, with a fine, strong frame, handsomely molded with a skin as perfect as jet, high, broad forehead, with nose and lips that exhibited the usual characteristics of the Negro race. There's no usual characteristics of black people, nose and lips. Let me continue. He has teeth whose regularity and pearly whiteness a court beauty might have envied, and with eyes whose brilliance was almost dazzling. Yup, sounds like he really admired his looks. But what Samuel Archer Sharpe is known for was spearheading an uprising that led Britain to abolish slavery in the colonies. Though born into slavery, Sharpe self-reported that he was treated well by his enslavers, who never beat or flogged him. The bar is low. Some of the privileges that were afforded Sharpe that were not afforded to other enslaved people usually, he was taught to read and write. Sharpe became very religious or spiritual, and in early adulthood, he was ordained as a Baptist deacon or daddy. And he was also a gifted, persuasive orator. In the Black Baptist Church in Jamaica, they viewed their group as a black family, and the leaders were either called teachers or daddies. These teachers or daddies were allowed to move around from plantation to plantation, and this provided Sharpe with the opportunity to meet and build relationships with other enslaved people. Sam Sharpe cultivated co-conspirators out of those viewed as the enslaved elites. These elite enslaved people held jobs such as craftsmen, drivers, and head boilers in the sugar factory. They were essential to everything. And they used their freedom of movement and access and credibility to spread his message. The involvement of the elite class of enslaved people was later quite shocking to the slaveocracy, because they felt that they treated them well, so why were they so rebellious? But no one enjoys being enslaved. What they formed, this elite group and those people they had contact with, this was a network of enslaved people. It was an informal underground information loop. Sharpe used this informal network to spread information about the progress of the abolitionists in England, and he also used it as an opportunity to preach Christian texts on freedom. His favorite texts were Matthew 6:24, no one can serve two masters. You either hate one or love the other. You cannot serve God and money. John 8:36, if the Son sets you free, you are free indeed. 1 Corinthians 7:23, you were bought with a price. Don't become slaves to human beings. Galatians 3:28, before the coming of faith, we were held under custody of the law, locked up until the coming of faith would be revealed. So basically, Sam Sharpe was a liberation theologian. He searched the text to find freedom for himself and his people. So Sharpe planned a rebellion, an uprising, and his plan was to have two phases. First, there should be a peaceful strike on December 27th, and this was during harvest time when the labor of the enslaved people were necessary. Otherwise, the content of the sugar the cane would not be as sweet if it was left in the field. So they would use this time, this opportune time, to demand better wage, demand actual wages and not slavery. And the second part of the strategy was, if the Bokra Massa didn't comply, to use violence to get them to comply. However, after the rebellion, the uprising occurred, those who took Sharpe's statement about the uprising, what was his intention? They claim he said his intention was nonviolent, but others had different ideas. However, some of his enslaved co-conspirators reported a secret meeting in which Sharpe told them that King William IV had freed the enslaved, but the whites in Jamaica were planning to kill black men, keep the women as playthings, and enslave the children. So black men had to rise up and fight. It's hard to know who to believe because everybody was at the threat of being murdered, and people tend to tell whatever story they need to tell. At the time, slavery had not been abolished in England. So if Sharpe said it had been, this was misinformation. But again, all is fair in war and enslavement. Do and say whatever you need to do and say to get free. So using the informal underground information loop, news about the planned Christmas strike spread to 20,000 enslaved people. However, information also reached authorities like Colonel Lawson, who in the days leading up to the planned strike unsuccessfully attempted to catch Sam Sharpe doing something shady. He did not, because Sam Sharpe went into hiding. The time came, but the uprising did not go as planned. Instead of going on strike, somebody struck a match and started burning down plantations in St. James. First, they started with the plantations owned by cruel masters. But then the enslaved moved on to the homes of people like Richard Barrett, who was known as a humane enslaver. Can you imagine that oxymoron? You can't be enslaving people and be humane at the same time. And that's what I think the ancestors thought, like everybody is going to get burnt up here. In the words of the enslaved in Jamaica, when encouraged to return to the plantation during the uprising, some said, "This life we live is too bad. It is a life of a dog. We won't be slaves no more. We won't live whole no more. We won't take the flog no more." One enslaved man named George Brown, when encouraged by the militia to surrender, replied, "Jesus Christ has made me free. I will not work for no man." Feelings got so high that some enslaved people killed other enslaved people who did not want to participate in the uprising. The uprising lasted 10 days. Many enslaved people lost their life. And in 1832, Sam Sharpe was hung. But before they murdered him at the age of 31 on May 23rd, he said, "I'd rather die upon yonder gallows than live in slavery." And no one can deny that Sam Sharpe's uprising was a significant reason why slavery ended in the British colonies. And in 1975, Jamaica vindicated him and recognized him as one of our national heroes, the Right Honorable Samuel Sharpe. Takeaways: real Christians will always find a way to resist oppression and bondage. And coming up next, while Sam Sharpe was planning his labor strike at the same time Nat Turner was making plans in Virginia. We'll catch up with Nat next time. Thanks for listening.